Hello, my name is Duncan Foley and we're here today to do a FlexSim model called Global Modeling Tools Advanced Booklet 3 in FlexSim version 2020. This is quite a complex model. We're going to do quite a lot of new things today. We're going to introduce the concept of programming within FlexSim. However, this module is not going to teach you how to do any sort of advanced programming. It's simply to show you that there is programming features within FlexSim. In fact, you've already used them. You've just accepted the default settings and stuff. Going through the tutorial very quickly, we're going to create a very quick model here. You can see it's a source queue, two processors, two queues, a combiner. The combiner is going to be fed by a palette source at the top, and then it's going to painter 1 and 2 separator, so it's going from left to right. It's further down, so we'll connect it all up. We're going to do some setting up, and what we're going to do is introduce global variables. Hopefully it'll make sense a little while later, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable called operator, and when we do transport and stuff, and we normally connect using the export connection, we're simply going to use a variable called operator, and that will be in place of using that export S connection. And on a similar thing, we're going to do the same for transporter. Also, we're going to have global macros as well. So we're going to have a variable called process time. And when we have a processor and we want to declare the process time, which is going to be log normal 2, so on, instead of writing that out in full, we're simply going to use the macro name processor underscore time. For this model, it does seem a little bit of an overkill, but imagine we've got hundreds of processors in our model, and we realized that we'd set it up as log normal 2 10, and we're told that they've now all changed to 15. We would have to go through all the processors and change them individually. Alternatively, we could simply go to this global variable where we have a global macro where we have something called process time, and it's declared as this, and we just update it, and it will update for all of the processors. And just going through, we're going to do quite a lot of that. We're going to do another global table, which is going to look at input and output ports. And this is going to look at the idea of dependent on what part comes in. If it's a part number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, it will get a different combination of flow items. Flow item currently here is called item row 1, row 2. So if it's a pallet, for example, coming in and it's a number 3 pallet, the system will know, the combiner will know to get 4 from item part 1 and 4 from item part 2. Hopefully some of this will make more sense as we're working through it. This is another example of user commands, and we're going to use a command here called paint time, and we're going to put some code on it, and we're literally going to come back to this document and copy all this code in. Like so, that yes, there is code within FlexSim that if you're so inclined, you could learn how to use it. This tutorial is basically showing you that it is there. It is an option, but we're not going to go too much detail in this. So as to say, it looks at the different flow items coming in, and dependent if it's different types, it would have different paint times depending on the type number. And that's a little bit more. Let's see if we'll go right down to the bottom. So we are going to come back to this document. We are going to use some copy and paste because I can't see myself writing everything, all that code back in, so I'm going to be a little bit lazy. So let's go to the FlexSim model now. Let's go to the FlexSim model now. I've already put the pieces in. I've not changed any of the names and stuff as yet. So I've got a source, a queue. The queue needs to be renamed as part queue. So I'll just do that. Then we've got processors 1 and 2. Okay. Just to be so we set the same to the tutorial. I'm just going to update that to Q1 and Q2, so it's same as the tutorial. This process is now renamed as Painter 1. I know the next one's going to be called Painter 2, so I'll just copy that, paste that in there, and just change it to 2. And say OK. And this is the palette source. Palette source. Apply an OK. Right. Reasonably there now. So I'm going to connect this source to the part queue. The part queue to processors 1 and processors 2. Processor 1 to Q1 and processor 2 to Q2. Palette source to the conveyor, and then the conveyor to the combiner. Remember that the first port that goes into a combiner is always the thing that the flow item that everything's going to be placed on top of. So we're getting pallets from this conveyor, so we've got to make sure that the first input port for a combiner is the pallet. And let's connect Q1 to the combiner, Q2 to the combiner, and then the combiner to Painter 1 and 2. Painter 1 and 2 to the separator, separate to the two conveyors, and then a conveyor to the sink. Zoom out a little bit. What you should note is we've not connected the operator and the transporter. That's because we're going to try and connect these using, we're going to give this operator a variable name, and we're going to call the variable rather than using an S connector, and the same for the transporter. So let's open up the source queue, sorry. We'll leave the inter-arrival time to exponential 10, and let's go to triggers on creation, and let's set the visuals. Where are we? Data set, sorry. Set labeling and color. Depending on what version you're using, this might say set item type and color. We're using version 2020. If you're using 2018, this might say set item type and color. And we're going to use a done uniform of 2, so it's going to create 2 different parts. They're going to be, the part is going to have a sort of label on it called type, and it'll either be a type 1 or a type 2, and it'll have according colors as well, because we're setting the label and the color. Let's apply it and say OK. Let's go to palette source. Let's change the flow item class to a palette. Let's change the inter-arrival time to 0. So basically they come straight away and we have an infinite number of palettes. Now let's go to triggers and do on creation again. And we're going to do set label. Again, if this you're using an older version, this might be set item type. So there we go. So we've got item type, and we're going to call it, sorry, we're going to have 6 different palettes coming through. So let's click on that and apply it and say OK. You should be able to run this now. Let's just run it very quick. I'm just going to stop it as parts start up here, or palette should I say. So you can see that I've got a palette. It's item type 1. Let's click on item type 6, 3. So it's creating random palettes with different labels. Let's see if we get some boxes before long. Just crank it up a bit. There we go. I've got a box there, so that's a red box, and this is item type 1. I presume we'll get there's a green box, and that's item type 2. So that seems to be working. So what we want to do now is create a global variable to call up the operator. So let's go to Toolbox, Tools, and go and find global variables. If you're using a trial version of FlexSim, this might not be available. If you're using the license that gives you 100 parts like I am, this should be available. Right, let's click on global variable. And we're going to call this variable operator. Currently, we're looking at integers and stuff. We want to get access to the model. The model's in the scene. If you click on there, you can do that. You can click it, select it from the drop down, or you can just do the little selection option there. So if we write anywhere in our program or anywhere in our properties windows for any of these operator, it will know that it's talking about operator 1. What we're going to do now is do a similar thing for the forklift truck. So if we click on that, get another variable name, we're going to call that forklift. And remember, it is case sensitive, so I've used a capital F, so I've got to remember that. Let's go to tree, click on there, and go and get the forklift truck. Okay. And we're going to do a global macros. I'm going to be quite lazy here. I'm going to go back to the Word document, so I don't have to copy all the text in. There we are. So I need to copy that text in. Let's copy that. Put it in there. So we're going to have a global macro. It's going to be called processor underscore time, and every time I type in processor underscore time, it's going to use those settings. So I can type that in as many processors as I want, and it will get the data from here. And if I need to change that data, I just come to the global macro section, change it from 15 to a new number, and it will update all the processors at any one time. So let's apply and say OK. Let's go to the pot queue and set the maximum content to 25. Let's go to the flow tab, and it's port is by expression because we want item types 1 to go there and item type 2 to go there. So we use it by expression, so it will get the item type and send it to the port accordingly. Let's go transport. But we're not going to use the center port. So what we want to do is call up this operator 1, and we've created a variable called operator. Now it's appearing here. So we can actually just click on that and it will call that operator because we've defined that earlier. And apply, and I'm going to go to the next two queues, and Q1, and that's going to have a maximum content of 100, and so is Q2. And apply. So let's go to processor 1. And we've got our processor times currently set as 10. Let's change that, and if you remember in the code what I copied in, it was capital PR processor underscore time. There we are. So that is now appeared, and that will bring up the value that we set earlier in the global macros. I'm just going to copy that and repeat that for processor 2. And say apply and OK. So what we're going to do now is add a global lookup table for the combiner, because what we want the combiner to do is read the pallet number if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's going to look at the table. So where are we? Here we go. So if it's a pallet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, it will take in a different item type number, the red and green boxes. So if it's a pallet number 4, it will take 2, 1 color, and 3 from the other color. So let's go back here. And we're in here, so we need a new global table. And we're going to rename this parts list. Oh, parts list. I need 2 rows and 6 columns, and let's put the values in. 3, 5, 4, 2, 5, 4. Okay. This could be extremely complicated. We're only using 5 different types of pallets and only 2 flow items, but you can have quite a complex model here. This could be different types of cars. This could be the different features on the cars. So if it's a particular model, does it have alloy wheels and not alloy wheels? So there'll be a 1 or a 0 dependent on what type of chassis it was and stuff. Okay, so let's go back to our model, open the combiner. let's go to the combiner option and say we want to transport objects along the surface. It just looks a little bit nicer. Click on the flow tab, and we are going to use transport, and we're going to use the forklift truck variable that we created earlier. Click on triggers, and we rather than using the combiner section where here using one from port 2 and one from port 3, remember port 1 is the pallet. We're going to take a triggers option and call up the parts list that we've just created. So on entry, update combiner component list with labels. And let's have a look on the drop down. So there's our drop down, our parts list. Quite nice that it means I don't have to remember if I've used a capital P and a capital L. It's automatically done that. So it's going to take the information from the parts list that we created here and feed it in there. So there you go. And say apply and OK. Okay, so now we're going to write a little bit of code, take some code in. Let's go to the Toolbox Model in Logic and use a command. I'm going to do a bit of copy and paste in here, so don't have to type so much. So where are we? So we're here. So the name is going to be paint time, so it means I don't have to. I'll put node obj. No. Now let's go back and copy and paste again. Just put these in the same short and long description. Change the example to, I'm just going to take that full stop off. And then we're going to add some code here. So currently got a blank sheet of code, and I'm going to go back here and get all of this code. And basically what it's doing is it's taking the item type number, and depending on what it is, it's going to have a different time to paint the object. So let's copy all that up. But like I said, this is not a programming module, so we're not going to go into too much depth. It's just nice for you guys to know that yes, you can do quite advanced programming inside FlexSim. Apply, apply, and OK. Okay, so let's add another one. Let's go back to our Word document so I can do a bit more copy and pasting. So there we go. Very similar names, so we need to be careful here. So node obj. set the example to paint items, so we'll be calling that up later. Just going to take that pull stuff off, and then let's go and get the code again. And put it here. Apply all. Apply OK. And close. Let's move it along. Let's open the paint one and set the processor time to paint time. And go to the flow tab. And we're going to use transporter. And again, we're going to use a forklift truck. Go to triggers, and we're going to add a little bit of code on the end of on process finish. So, as I said earlier, all of the buttons we're using just have code and stuff underneath it. Most of the time we never see it, so just going to add that there, copy and paste in here. So it's just adding a little bit more to the feature of on process finish. So it's going to get the paint items. So apply all. Okay. Okay. And let's repeat that for the processor 2. So let's change this to paint time. Go to flow, and remember we're going to use the forklift truck. Go to triggers, on process finish. Go and get the code, and let's add that little bit of code in there. Apply. Apply. The separator will probably be, so let's look at the flow. Default. The default will send it correct anyway, so we should be fine. Okay, let's look at our model. Okay, so what's happening here? I've forgotten to connect this up here. I do think you learn more by problem solving. Let's just call this. It looks like there's an issue here, so I'll find that out in a second. So let's reset and run. Just make sure that the model is running. Let's just maybe change this and look at how this is flowing. So it's first available. So I'm going to change this to round runway available, just to force it to take turns, and I think it should then create a small error. There we go. So what's happening here? There's an issue in Paint 2, and he's having a problem with this paint time, and I have made a mistake. It's very easy straight away. If I look at Paint 1, it's happy with. Sorry. So if I go to Paint 1, you can see I've written paint time current. And I've not done that there, so if I just do current, spell it correctly, that would help. Apply, click on OK, close that, rerun. Hopefully, it looks like I've got a problem somewhere else. So let's sort that out. Actually, I'll just make sure that I reset it all. Just make sure that it's absolutely running the right version. Did that actually? So what's happening is there's an issue with Painter 2. That's what, and I've set it to random available port. So this is blocking because I've got something wrong. So what it's doing, it's coming here. That's not available, so it's going there. So I need to work out what the problem with cycle times and stuff with this. Okay. I had a problem with Painter 2. I can get it to work. This is quite common in FlexSim to have these little bugs and stuff. So I checked that the processor time was calling up this macro, and I've forgotten to put the word current afterwards for Painter 2. I then went to triggers, checked the code that we'd added at the end, and that's absolutely fine. So what I decided to do is take Painter 1, right click, edit, copy and paste. I'd basically take a copy of Painter 1 because I know it works, and put it onto as replace Painter 2, deleting it and replacing it with a copy of Painter 1. And if we run our model now, I'm just going to let one go through. So we've got one here, and just pull it. Just trying to grab the palette. There we go. So this is a palette 1, and it's got 5 item type 2s and 3 item type 1s. So palette 1, 3 item type 1s and 5 item type 2s. So that's worked. And clearly it's calling up the variable for forklift truck, and the operator is working. So quite a complex tutorial today. We've learned the features of using a lookup table, global tables for palettes, which adds a new dimension to the combiners, which I think is really useful. We've looked at having variables that we can call. I appreciate that the variables for the processor, it is calling up this this processor underscore time, and we could quite easily change that very quickly here for processor 1 and 2. It's probably just as quick to change it here, but if we had 50 or 100 of these processors all with the same processor time, it'd be a bit more challenging to update all of those if we needed to, whereas we could just go to the variables that we've created. Let's have a look. So here, so if all the processors suddenly change from log normal 2 to 20 or 10 or whatever, we could just update it here, and all the processes in our model will be updated. So yeah, quite a complex model. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening.